mine who's from the UK. She's a trauma therapist trained in somatic therapy and a spiritual coach. Growing up in a home with family struggling with mental health, Caroline struggling with anxiety and addiction herself and being afraid to ask for help. She wants to leave behind a healing legacy for her children, her grandchildren, and her great-grandchildren to come. What do you want your legacy to be?
I grew up in a family where, looking back, although I didn't know at the time, where mental illness was a big part of our life. And my father was an alcoholic. At the time, I didn't know all his trauma story. I know his trauma story now, which was quite, it came down through the generations. My mother suffered a lot with anxiety, and that came across in those days, which was in the 70s. It was more of, she's a worrier, she suffers with her nerves, that type of thing. But if it was labelled now, it would be called anxiety. And through that, my brother started to develop severe depression when he was quite young. And from the age of 12, his depression got really, really quite intense. And he would attempt to take his own life from the age of 12 up to when he was 22. And that was quite often in our family home. And of course, I was 7 years younger, so I was very impressionable, very vulnerable, and grew up with that, seeing that happening in our family home. And he was in and out of what I would call now mental institutions. So they sectioned him quite a few times. Again, in the 70s, they didn't know any different. There was no trauma therapy as there is now. It was more, he's got a problem, he needs to be locked away. Basically.
There's something wrong with him, kind of
basic. There's something wrong with him, and he needs to be.
What happened to him?
Yeah, instead of what happened. And actually, it's only recently come out about what happened, but I'll talk about that shortly. And so growing up with that, it meant my nervous system was in fight or flight for as long as I can remember. Again, I didn't know that. I just thought this is how everybody is, So I was classed as probably quite a nervous, anxious child. And I met my husband, and we had our 2 children. Still, the anxiety was there. I hid it really well. And I must say, this time I never talked to anybody about it. It was just never spoken about. I just lived with it. But I then became quite successful in my work as well, and I became a workaholic. So there was something else that was distracting me from the anxiety.
Pushing down the feelings. First the drinking, then the working, trying to find something to push down the anxiety.
Yes, yeah. And not knowing that, I just thought this is what I do. And of course, work was more, people would say work is more of a healthy habit, perhaps, but it wasn't, because I was really overworking. I was taking everything on. I was working 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and having 2 children as well. So, I was trying to juggle everything. At the same time, we're all connected in that way.
I believe we're all connected. I don't know about, but I believe when one person is hurting, it can impact another.
Yes.
And I believe when one person heals, it can impact a community.
Yeah.
And it can impact a family for generations. It can have a ripple effect for generation to generation to generation. And we will not even see it.
No.
And that's why it's so important to do our healing work, because we don't know the powerful impact it can have, not just on our own lives. We experience it ourselves, but on so many others, our children, grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren. We want to leave a legacy. I guess it's good to reflect on what type of legacy do you want to leave? Do you want to leave a legacy of looking at others with compassion and love and forgiveness and a compassionate lens? I know, looking at my own grandmothers, someone asked me once, how am I going to handle my life? Actually, when my ex asked me that, he asked me, how am I going to handle being a single mom? He said, I can't do it. And my response to that was, I come from generations, a strong woman, and I can do it. And it was such a powerful force to say that, because my nana and my grandma were both very strong women that were very close to God. And I felt them behind me. I don't personally, I believe they're in heaven, but I felt very strong saying it, and I felt like that's what they left behind.
That,
and
you want to leave that behind.
And what do you want to leave behind?
I want to leave behind.
What do our viewers want to leave behind? It's good to just
I want to leave behind that we don't need to suffer. We're not here to suffer, and yet so many of us are. And there is always someone who can help if you reach out.
And so important to reach out, I believe. Do you?
It is. Oh gosh, yes, because I didn't for so many years, and I suffered in silence. And that my life could have been different if I had reached out earlier. Who knows? You can't go back. But I want people to. I'd like to leave that actually there is a different way of living, and raising our consciousness, because our subconscious is 95% of our mind or more. Being able to raise our consciousness can raise the vibration of so many other people, and people.
And what do you mean by that?
So if 95% is subconscious, we're not aware of what's going on underneath us, but we're driven by it. It's all our old patterns and everything that's been conditioned. Then the more we can become aware of that, and the more other people we can help, other people can become aware of that, we ease suffering and we become who we should be.